Don't let your waiter pull this fast one on you that I'm gonna walk you through right now. Waiters know when you're on a first date or a business meeting, they know you don't want to look cheap, and I'm going to tell you how I walked into a situation. I didn't expect it at one of the nicest steakhouses in Dallas, but I'm going to tell you a sly way that our waiter came in to try to trap me into ordering some expensive oysters, so if I didn't, I would look cheap. And I'm going to tell you how I responded, and also tell you some other ways that you can respond, so if you ever find yourself in a situation like that, number one, you don't look cheap, and number two, you don't get taken advantage of from a waiter who's trying to make a little extra dough on the tip. So waiters know the easiest way for them to make more money is get the average ticket value up at each table. And how do they do that? Suggestive selling. Oh, I've got this nice bottle of wine that pairs with this. Oh, I've got these oysters. But this tricky wording was kind of hard. You had to go back and think through about how he actually traps people into this. So what happens, I was sitting down with my buddy, and the waiter comes up, and the way that he words the question was, do you guys like oysters? Okay, think about that. Do you guys like oysters? What would you say? 80% of people do? 70% of people do? So when he says that, if it's the guy at the table on a date or the guy who's gonna pay or just the table in general, and even one of them says yes, if it's 70%, now you got two people at 70%, you got over 80% of the time someone's gonna say yes. He says, oh, well, we just flew in these spectacular oysters from da-da-da-da-da-da. So now if you say, oh no, we don't want the oysters, you sound cheap because you already said that you like the oysters. So the wording that he uses, do you like oysters, is really trying to trap you. What could have he said if he wasn't trying to trap you, but really give you the option to get these oysters? I don't know if you guys like oysters, but we just flew in these fantastic ones from so-and-so. If you're interested, they're here. That doesn't put any extra pressure, but it makes the table aware of what they have. He didn't want to do that. He wanted to trap us, and I'm sure he has a lot of success with it, especially a restaurant like this. I was a bit disappointed because you go to a fancy restaurant for really good service. You know, the food varies a little bit after a certain level, but the service is really what gets higher and higher. And to feel like someone's trapping you to try to get the ticket up, it just felt cheap. It really cheapened the entire experience for me. But what did I say, and how can you handle it? Think about it right now. What if a guy came up and said, hey, do you guys like oysters? You said, yeah. He says, oh, great. Well, we have this and this and this. Just waits and looks, right? Doesn't even say anything. Do you want some? Just the pressure is already on by him explaining that because you said you like oysters. So what you really have to do is get right out in front of it and come up with a reason why it doesn't fit tonight. So what I said is, oh, those sound absolutely great. The food that we're getting doesn't really pair with oysters to start out, so we're gonna pass on those. But can you tell me about this filet special? Right on to a new thread. That's a way to diffuse it. Most people will feel that social pressure, and they already said, yeah, I like oysters. Oh, great, we have, yeah, could you bring me 6? They don't even want them. They don't want to pay the $30, however much they're charging for them, but they feel pressured into that, and I don't want you to feel pressured into that. Now, another way you can handle it, and probably a way that I will handle it in the future, because I had never had this happen to me before, so I had to go, the way that I handled it that I just told you right now is fine, but a better way to handle it would be to preemptively get out in front of it. Now, if you're interested in oysters, then for all beings, say you like oysters and go and order them. There's no problem with that. But if you don't want oysters and he says, hey, do you guys like oysters? Immediately you could just jump on it and say, yes, but the type of meal we're getting tonight just wouldn't start really good with oysters. But let me ask you about this, or we're looking about this, or what are your thoughts on this, onto another thread? Don't let him suck you into that, because you can always go back to it as well. If you're not sure about your date or something like that, you could say, you know, I'm not quite sure if that really goes with what our meal is today, but after we have a few questions we'll talk about we're getting, maybe we'll revisit the oysters if it's a good fit. You're taking the frame back, you're taking control, versus the waiter establishing that frame, putting undue social pressure on you to order things you don't want. You know, I remember, this is a long time ago, but I was in Paris, and one of the first really nice restaurants I'd been with. It was with a girl I was dating and her family, and it was over the top expensive. And I remember the waiter coming over, and he really was just trying to hold the frame. It almost felt like he was trying to boss everyone around. And then with dessert, you're gonna get this and this. And the guy, the father of the gal that I was dating at the time, It was like, oh yeah, that's how they do it. That's how these nice restaurants, the French waiters, they really want to take the frame. I don't like that. If you like that, cool, let them lead and dictate. But I don't want you to ever feel pressured to succumb to some other guy's frame just because he's a waiter in a fancy restaurant. I want you to have the confidence to step up and know that you can handle that kind of pressure. Oh, that sounds nice, that sounds interesting. But right now, we're just trying to decide what we're gonna get as our core meal. So if it fits, we'll come back and we'll hear more about those oysters then, if that's okay with you. Boom, right on to the next thing. You're taking the frame, you're taking the lead, you're controlling the situation in the face of somebody else trying to exert control upon you. Now, if you're in the dating scene and you're over the age of 30, you've probably seen, what does the most common advice look like? If you're in a bar and you're going up to some girl and you're half drunk and you're crawling on all fours and you're at a frat party, it's not tailored for mature men. It's tailored for guys really between about 18 and 22. If you're in the dating scene, you're over 30, I've got a program called the Mature Men's Dating Program that takes a totally different spin on it. It helps you leverage your age and maturity to have success in the dating scene. So I'll put a link below there. You can go to maturemensdatingprogram.com, or I'll also put a little card that'll circle with the eye right there that you can click on. If you're on the right device, it'll pop up. Now, another component of establishing the frame in a restaurant like this that the waiters will try to use on you as well is a strong vocal tonality, a strong, deep, persuasive voice. Now let's say you're at a restaurant with a buddy of yours, or an art gallery or a museum, and there's a couple women that you're interested in, you want to talk to, see if you like them. If you get that beating heart and you feel so nervous and don't know what to say, I've got a video that's gonna help you reframe that in your mind to lose those butterflies and really feel confident when you go. I should call it the playing card analogy. If that sounds interesting to you, I'll put the video right here and you can click on it right here and I'll tell you about the playing card analogy now.